Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on our BMW F80 from the Ann Arbor series. We're going to be doing two oil cooling upgrades. We're going to be installing a CSF Engine Oil Cooler, which is part number 8220. We'll also be installing a Mosselman Oil Thermostat with titanium racing bolts for the S55 competition. For tools, in order to do this install, we're going to need a 1/4 inch drive, a 3/8 drive wrench, socket wrench, 8mm, 13mm. We'll need a pick tool. We'll also need a 6mm and 7mm hex, an E8 Torx. We'll need a torque wrench, a pry bar, and we've got an oil catch can plus measuring cup in order to replace our lost oil, and we'll be refilling with 0W30 genuine BMW oil. All right, let's go ahead, get the car off the ground, and start our installation. What we're going to do first is jack the car up and get them onto our Megan racing ramps. We'll do this by using our standard jack pad position and then sliding the ramps underneath the wheel itself and then gently lowering it down. We're going to start on the driver's side and then gently lower it down onto the racing ramp. And similarly, we're going to go ahead and go on the passenger side using our jack and our key in order to get it up off the ground. Once we have it in the air, we'll just gently slide our racing ramp underneath our wheel and gently lower the car down. Finally, we'll go to the front of the vehicle, and this will allow us to get underneath the center of the car to jack it up so that we can put our jack stands underneath, which are just a little bit higher and safer than the racing ramps, but this will just allow for us to lower the car back down onto those and work safely underneath it. First things first, we're going to go ahead and get all the 8mm trim bolts from the M Sport surround as well as the skid plate. And we got 4 more 8mm just up on the bumper here for the and we got 2 13mm here as well. And then our skid plate should come out easily enough. And we'll put that somewhere safe. All right, now that we've got the skid plate off, we're gonna take our 13mm and just gently loosen the secure brackets for the OEM oil cooler. We'll just gently loosen them. We're not gonna take them off just yet, but this will help later. And then what we can do is take our 10mm 1/4 inch drive and get our oil catch bucket, because we're going to be dropping the passenger side first. So we'll get our bucket in here. We'll get our pry bar for some gentle persuasion. And then we're going to go ahead and loosen. let's go ahead and remove the first 10 millimeter bolt that's holding on our cooler line. We'll just gently loosen this. We have our oil catch can below, catch anything that might come out, but it's got a pretty good seal. All right, and with that out, we can gently rock him back and forth. And we'll just let that gently drain out. And since we have a second oil catch bucket, we're just gonna go ahead and do this side as well, just because it's taking a little bit of time to drain out. Similar to before, we're just gonna gently rock it back and forth until it comes loose. All right, and now that it's disconnected, we're gonna go ahead and take our 13 millimeter bolts, and we're gonna try and not make a big mess here. But we're going to go ahead and remove the cooler itself. Got some newspaper lined up just to catch any of that oil that starts to fall off when we go to move the cooler. Hopefully that doesn't blow away. Just be really careful because there are a lot of rock bits that have gotten stuck up in our cooler. Here we are. Just be careful. We'll just do this side. All right, and now that all three bolts are off, you can gently let it down and just make sure that any oil comes out into our, see all the little bits come out here. Just be careful with all that. Look at all that absolute disaster of a mess. Oh my goodness. Ton of rock debris and leaves and sticks. We're gonna actually vacuum that out. And we're gonna just cover our oil lines once we do that, just to make sure that they don't get any crud in them. So I can get our newspaper here. I mean, just an unbelievable mess inside. All the debris that's built up from the road and is certainly not helping any engine performance. So we'll go ahead and get this vacuumed and cleaned up as well. This is the OEM one, but certainly a lot is entered, and we'll just clean out everything that we can before installing the new one. All right, and with that, we're gonna go ahead and remove our old O-rings and install fresh ones. And we just have them in some fresh oil just to give them a little bit of lubrication before sliding them on. So get them nice and oiled up, and then just gently get them on. Perfect. And now we can go ahead and get the assembled oil cooler up there. We'll just need our 13mm mounting bolts. We're going to take out the plastic retainers that came with it new. Get one side started, and then we'll go to the other side and get that started as well. All right, much better. We'll just get them hand tight for now. Perfect, and then we'll go ahead and just connect our oil lines. Gently slide them into place. Gently rock them in. Here we lost a little bit of the audio, but what you'll see is when we tried to push the oil cooler lines into the oil cooler, the gasket size that was on real OEM didn't allow us to push in. So we actually got out our Vitten high temperature seal kit, and we were able to match up the size of the OEM gasket to one of the ones that was available. So in this case, we're taking off 16mm, and I think we ended up with a 14mm. So we're just using our pick tool to get that gasket off, and then we're replacing it with the smaller size. And with that smaller gasket, you'll notice that we're gently able to rock it into place with minimal resistance. So this was just a little bit of elbow grease to push it in, but nothing major. And then with the new smaller gasket, you'll see that it just gently pushes in flush with the unit. And we're just going to do the same thing here on the other side. Take our pick tool and just get the larger gasket off, and then put on our smaller, appropriately fit gasket. And gently rocking it into place, we'll see it goes flush with the oil cooler itself. Next, we're putting on our 10mm nuts. We'll just hand tighten these first. Installed the passenger side. Just thread them on a little bit, get them started. And the driver's side as well. And then once that's on, we'll just give it a little snugness with a 1/4-inch drive. Nothing too crazy. And the same thing on the passenger side. All right, and next we're going to torque the 13mm down to 20 Newton meters or 15 foot-pound. I feel like that's pushing on the rubber too much. All right, and we'll go ahead and get our skid plate back in as well. And since we did get the bigger oil cooler, I think we're gonna have to use the provided spacer hardware on the 13mm bolts. Might even need to take off the back rubber piece of the, or if we can sort of manipulate it around it, because our oil cooler is substantially larger now. Might be able to get it up without any modifications. All right, and with our 13 millimeter bolts that are holding our skid plate on, we're just going to go ahead and hand tighten them down. Nothing too crazy here. And then we'll go ahead and get our trim panels back on, starting with the driver's side. These are just held in by the 8 millimeter trim screws, so we'll just hand thread a couple of these on so then we can get our electric tool out and make it go a little bit faster. But get them hand tightened here, and then take our 3/8 inch and just tighten them down. And we'll just do the same thing on the passenger side with our trim. We'll just get it into place gently and then hand tighten down a couple of the 8 mils so it just stays above us, and then we'll use our electric socket to tighten everything down.
All right, and last bit before we move on to our Mosselman is we're just going to measure how much oil came out of the oil cooler, just so that we can replace it. A couple stray engine bits, just rocks and stuff that had kicked up, but I think we're at about 750 mils, plus we owe it about 30% more. I think we're going to be in for about a liter all in of OEM engine oil in order to fill this thing back up. So, all right, perfect. All right, so next what we're going to start to do is disassemble some of the trim and engine components in order to get to our oil cooler, which is located here. In order to get here, what we're going to have to do is remove the 2 upper plastic trim bits, take off our carbon fiber strut bar. We'll also have to take off our 1/2 of our Venturi carbon fiber intake, and then we'll have to move one of the hard lines away so we can access one of the bolts underneath. So in order to do that, we're going to first start by taking a 10 millimeter and backing out all the bolts attaching the upper trim. And next what we'll be able to do is remove our carbon fiber trim, which is held by 13 millimeters and just one 10 millimeter here. All right, and next what we can do is loosen up the hardware for our cold air intake. It's a 1.6mm hex. Perfect. All right, and next what we can do, I think that uses E8 Torx in order to get the bracket out and then sort of bend the hard line out, because one of our bolts is just sitting back here. We've got 3 of them and one's below here, so we'll sort of move these around. All right, and since we are going to be working with oil and we don't really want to get it everywhere, we're just going to put a microfiber cloth into our intake. And what we're going to do first is loosen up that E8 on the side in order to move the hard line. Really, we just need it to go about half an inch that way, and that should give us access to the E-Torx that's under there. And once we get this E8 out as well, we're going to take the engine cover off just to give us a little bit more access to this top bolt as well. And then what we're going to do is start stuffing in some shop towels underneath, because as we drop the oil thermostat off, we'll actually be getting a little bit of oil in here as well. And so this just pops free. We might just need a little bit of persuasion, not too much here. Come out for a second there, and then there we go. All right, that'll be enough for us to manipulate it. Okay, now we're gonna sneak in a bunch of shop towels and really try and fill the space underneath so that no oil drops down. I do have some newspaper down there as well, but we're gonna try and keep the engine as clean as possible here. Looks science experimenty enough. All right, we got this loose so we can get under. We can still get to our bolt down there because it's just behind this, and we can easily get to this one, and yeah, bracket's loose enough. All right, so what we're going to do is take this one off first. It's actually T30 in our instance. And we're just going to gently pull down on these oil lines, and they should slide out. They're just held in by a couple little O-rings. And this is actually where we could get a little bit of oil, but look at that. You know, since our car's been sitting up back for a couple hours now, almost zero oil, but the O-rings do look to have stayed in the unit itself. Okay, and now what we're going to do is take our E12 and see if we can't get all three of these off, and then we'll be able to gently lift out the oil cooler itself. All right, and now what we're going to do is gently push and put over here. Hopefully we don't get too much oil. Ooh, definitely a little bit, but our gasket stayed on. I think we did a fairly decent job of being able to capture it all. We'll let that sit for just a second. Doesn't look like any's dripping down, so I think we were able to get the majority of it. And we're just going to clean up a little bit more of the old oil. Really just the part that's in the gasket. I just use fresh oil in there. Most of it's out. We can leave some in because we are going to need a little bit. Since I really only saw oil on this side, what I'm going to do is take a little bit of oil on our new gasket and just kind of put some on that side just to give us a little bit of a seal. And our gasket is shaped that it can only go in one way. This is the gasket itself. Perfect. But we're just going to take a little bit of oil and put it on that side, just that the oil was on. We have a little bit of fresh oil. Clean off our glove a little bit. Just take our finger, give it a little bit of oil around it. That way it just goes in a little easier and presses in. All right. Let's set our new gasket. Really nice fit. Sure, the edges are nice and smooth. Flush with the unit, because when we go to put in our new one, we won't be able to see. Alright. And then what we can do is take our two new O-rings. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to give them a bit of new oil and then slide them onto Alright, just got a little bit of new oil. Perfect, and we'll just slide these on. Alright, first one's on. Put oil in there, alright. Alright, we got our second one pushed on as well. Perfect, not too bad. Good. So, we're going to go ahead and install the unit. Gasket's nice and flush. And we'll just go around and hand tighten all three and then evenly torque them down. First one. Get the bottom one in. See goodbye everything. Get these oil lines back in. Hoping since we gently gave them some lubrication, they want to go back in easily. Perfect, and we have our bolt. I need a hex for this. Maybe a hex 6 or 5. We bring over. Oh, get that. All right, the outside bolts will be torqued down to 18 Newton meters. Just going to get our torque wrench here and our extensions. Got 10 millimeter. We're going to do a little bit of tightening all around before final torque. I didn't realize how loose they were. That way we get a good uniform. I see why we can't put the oil cooler lines on them before torquing now. My minor mistake. Since we're down here, we will torque this one first. There's 18. There's 18. and now the oil cooler line can go back in. Alright, we're going to say that's good and tight because it's 8 Newton meters. Everything looks to be torqued to spec. Alright, let's get some of our tools out of here and then start cleaning up the engine bay. Alright, next we're going to reinstall the bracket for the hardline that we pushed out of the way. Next we'll get our engine cover back on. Alright, and next we'll get our E-Venturi air duct on. Because we're on carbon fiber, we don't have to be too tight. Alright, and let's go ahead and plug back in our sensors. And okay, what we're actually going to do is we're going to lower the car back down to the ground, fill it with oil because we did the oil cooler as well as the thermostat, and hopefully that'll bring some oil back towards the front. As we previously saw, I lost about 750 mils when I took off the bottom engine oil cooler. So we're going to put at least 750 back. Plus, because it's a little larger than the stock unit, we're going to put in a little bit more. I've got about a liter of oil here, so we'll probably end up with about a liter in the engine. All right, and last thing we're going to do before we start up the engine, now that we have the car on the ground, is we're going to go ahead and put in about a liter of oil. We lost about 750 mils on the bottom, so we'll replace that and then add a little bit more. Today we're using 0W30, which is what I've been doing my oil changes with, genuine BMW engine oil. We'll go ahead and get our cap off. All right, and that is everything all back together. We've installed our CSF Oil Cooler underneath. We've also installed our Mosselman Oil Thermostat up top. We'll go ahead and get the car started early tomorrow. Well, as you might be able to tell, it is the next day. Today we are going to start the car up. So just as a recap, last night we replaced the engine oil cooler. We replaced and upgraded with a CSF engine oil intercooler, and we also installed the Mosselman oil cooler. So today we've topped it off, we topped it off with about 1 liter of oil. We lost about 750 mils coming out the bottom. And then because the engine oil intercooler is a little bit larger, we put in an extra 250 mils. So we're just gonna go ahead, get in the car and give it a start up. And then we're gonna check for oil leaks at the thermostat and at the oil cooler below. We just have some of our trim bits off so we can visually inspect as well. All right, and everything sounds pretty good from inside the car. Let's get out and see if there are any leaks. Good news, I don't see any oil coming out, so double check that there are no check engine lights on. All right, no new oil leaks. Perfect. I don't see any spots on the ground or anything. We didn't really lose a lot last night because we were pretty good about capturing it in some of those shop cloths, so it's a pretty good feeling. We didn't have it drip throughout the engine bay or on any of our belts. And I don't see any oil dripping anywhere on these seals. Bone dry, just how we like it. So those Vitten seals were a perfect fit. Glad we did a visual comparison on them last night before finalizing everything up. Let's go ahead and get our trim back on. All right, and those are all our trim bolts back in. You can just clean up everything off here, get this mat out, and start the process of lowering the car. Good news, second startup. Now lights on.
Thanks for watching the BMW F80 from Ann Arbor series. That was the installation of our Mosselman Oil T-stat, as well as our CSF Engine Oil Cooler. Stay tuned for more episodes.